Hello and welcome back to our podcast at BioInsights. Uh, it's if you're a first-time viewer of the podcast, we're exploring really cutting-edge biotechnology, movement science, human performance, sports science, and today we have joining us Dan Davis. He's the CEO and founder of Recon Sports. It's a company working in the intersection of sports, data, and technology. We'll discuss topics around the sports tech market, about overcoming data fragmentation, about the role of AI, future athletic performance and team operation applications as well. With that introduction, Dan, it's great to have you here at the show.
Great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. To get us started, why don't you talk about a little bit about your background first and how you got into your role?
Sure. Um, I'm originally from upstate New York. I played football at the United States Military Academy at West Point. I graduated there in 2018. I studied systems management and systems engineering there, and kind of developed my knack for data and my interest in things like Excel and pivot tables and all that good stuff. And then I was commissioned as an officer into the field artillery branch. And after you graduate West Point, you have to serve 5 years in the Army. And I knew I was going to be a five and fly guy, do my 5 years and leave. I wasn't going to be a lifer. And so I'm sitting there in my first year of service, and I'm like, what am I going to do when I get out? And I like data, I like Excel. I played football, I want to be involved in sports again. So I used football as a motivation, as a practical exercise to enhance my data skills. Wherever I was stationed at, I would go and volunteer at the local high school, connect to their film account, run their analytics, and really it just started from there. Year after year, I almost looked at it as a part-time job while I was in the service. Recon Sports was birthed from that, and when I exited the Army, I stepped into the college world once I hit Recon full time. And instead of finding the best plays for high school football coaches on third down, I was helping college programs find the best players to put in on third down. And that's the main of Recon Sports right now is in the college space, and that's a little bit how I got started in my background.
I love the name Recon. Obviously, military fingerprint on that one. It's
Big
quite
time.
appropriate, actually. So, with the space, you've seen a bunch of sport tech explode over the past, I would say, decade. You were probably right at that point, that juncture point. What I remember was when there was not really that many players, but now it's incredibly competitive. So, what's your perspective on where the market is today and where you see it going?
I think it's definitely it's fun right now, and you look at it 10 years ago versus today. A lot of technology, a lot of cool stuff that they weren't able to do, track, visualize a decade ago. But as with any market, once it starts, there's a lot of excitement. A lot of people get throw their hat into the ring. A lot of people build different products and whatnot. And I think we're at the peak of that right now, where we have so many different wearables and different companies doing wearables and different sensors and data. And from a coach's perspective or a director's perspective, it might be cool to look at it as a fan, but these guys are getting pitched left and right from the same product, but from five different companies. So, from a market perspective, that's just the cycle. And I think in a few years, it's going to die down a little bit. And the ones that can really provide value and can advance themselves, especially with AI coming around the corner, I think it's gonna look very differently here in a few years. But right now, with just the life cycle of markets like this, um, it's fun, especially as a fan, to look out and see like, wow, this is the modern era. Like this is what you kind of thought of when you thought of the future.
Yeah, I participated in the NFL New Game Statistics program, wherein we were tracking NFL football athletes through their shoulder pads through accelerometry, and it was ridiculous how many antennas each stadium had, and you had to overcome the challenges with radio frequency. And the whole goal here was first just to collect data and
Mm-hmm.
give the most rudimentary information back, and then prove its value. Um, your company, earlier in the discussion, you talked about availability on third down. Um, can you elaborate a little bit more on that and talk about that a bit?
Sure. So, gone are the days where you're just going to have someone, you go and recruit in high school and you develop them, and now they're in on third down. With the transfer portal and then just the landscape of college football, it's all about two things. How do you identify talent and how do you develop talent once they're there? And development looks a lot differently now. It's not 4 years, but maybe it's 18 months, a year, and off season. So, it's I look at it as a front office and then the weight room. The front office is responsible for getting the guys into the weight room that fit their style of play, fit their culture, that they see the most potential for success. And now the weight room, their responsibility is to develop them into the best potential possible athletically, with toughness and intensity on top of that. So it comes down to the player personnel side being able to identify, say, a 3-star recruit that's just lacking these couple measurables, but they know from historical data that if they were to build those measurables in the weight room, they can excel like a 5-star on the field. So that's where the two kind of play in tandem. How can we identify people that are just below the radar and just need certain types of development to really excel? And then from a weight room perspective, hey, we got these guys in here now. We need to put 25 pounds on him and increase his front squat by 50 pounds, and that's going to give him the best chance of success. How have we done that in the past to get to that point that much quickly and efficiently? Because, like I said before, you don't have 4 years to do that. You maybe have 12 months.
So kind of talking about that, right? You have interdisciplinary departments that need to communicate and need to have visibility of what each others are actively doing. So it's kind of a disconnected historical system, right? You brought up Excel and how much you loved Excel. And I remember learning applied statistics with a lot of coaching programs, tracking Z scoring, radar plotting, because they wanted to identify TRIP scores for player A to player B to identify potential risk for overexertion as a training load metric. However, the only person that could see it is probably the athletic trainer or the strength coach. So no one had visibility, and none of the departments wanted to share full disclosure of data, because if I share that with my sports coach might still end up overtraining that athlete. So you've effectively seen how the barriers that organizations create. How do they use analytics effectively?
So really, you can't. Well, you just described what the majority of college football looks right now is disconnected silos, data from everywhere. You have your training room, your nutrition staff, your weight room, your player personnel, all operating on different systems, and essentially, from what I've seen, different rosters where you have guys' names spelled incorrectly across the board. I mean, just with that, how are you going to run an analytics or like um, successful analytics with that? It's virtually impossible. So, a lot of teams might think they're doing analytics. The one applied performance scientist might be have this sweet VBA macro in Excel. That's great, but only he sees it. And from an organization standpoint, in the Army, when you change positions, they had what's called a left seat, right seat. Your new guy would come in, he'd sit with you for like 3 weeks, you'd hand everything over to him, all your Excel, all your data, and then he has everything to go. That doesn't happen in college football. So when that sports scientist leaves, he takes all of that Excel, all of that data, not necessarily with him, but it doesn't stay there. It essentially becomes lost. So now, as an organization, you're losing out on years of concrete data, and you're paying for it, both in the sports scientists collecting it, the GPS tracking it, the sensors, everything. So once AI is ready to really process all of this data, that's when you're going to see the analytics really take off. So to answer your question of how they're doing analytics, it's a lot of teams think they're doing analytics when they're really not, because in order to effectively do it, you look at the NFL and how they execute their analytics. They have full-time data departments. They have engineers, data scientists that are supporting the whole organization, and they've been there doing that for decades, building on top of each
Oh,
other.
yeah.
College football does not have that at all.
Yeah, they're not cleaning up the data and multiple formats and sources like you talked about. The biggest challenge that I see with that community is there's levels of analysis that they're doing, and I think they're just rudimentally doing statistics. It's not
Hmm.
predictive yet, and it's not automated yet. So, can you share some real work examples of how you've integrated data to improve decision-making outcomes for clients? Not,
Big time. And one of my favorite things is,
go ahead.
go ahead. One of my favorite things is not just coming in with a certain algorithm or data or analytics and saying, hey, coach or director, this is what you should be following. It's coming in and having a conversation with the coach or director and really bringing their vision to life on what they think is true. Because the eye test and the gut test, that's a real thing, right? But you can't communicate it past just verbal communication and past being in the room. So how do we take that, what's in your eyes, what's in your gut, how do we digitize that and provide the analytics around it? And not even something this example is not even related to the weight room or player personnel, but just on a human perspective. I work with a great player development director, and he tracks issues and misses that players have, whether it's late to meetings, late to a lift, late to class. And there was one guy who was really at the top of the issues mark. He was late. Everyone thought he was underperforming, just undisciplined, couldn't be there on time. And what he wanted to start tracking is, hey, how far are my guys away from home? What are their affirmations? Who's their champion? What's their goal? And this guy that we're talking about, he was 3,000 miles away from
Wow.
home. And his affirmations were his family, were his home city. And he had no family there on the other side of the country to support him. And he's thinking about home. Once he was able to get those data points and now come in and have a conversation with that individual and motivate him and now put systems and processes around this individual to make, hey, maybe we got to fly his family in a little bit more. Hey, if we have downtime, let's make sure that this guy can go back home to California because that's what's important to him and he's going to stand out that much better. And this case study is on my website. 2 years later, that player was a second round draft pick. So from what started off to be guy can't show up on time, why do we even recruit this guy? To now we put the systems around him in place for him to be successful because we brought an idea to life from one of these directors. He was able to coach him through it and turn him literally into a second round draft pick. So that's one of my favorite stories about this because it's not essentially like, hey, how do we improve our bench press or our speed? These kids they're kids at the end of the day and
Yeah.
they're human. While the performance and the toughness is great, sometimes just being able to say, "Hey, I got this gut feeling on something. Can I see it on the data? Okay, let me track this. Let me track that. Boom, I know exactly what it is now."
Yeah, just because they're 6'5", 300 pounds doesn't mean that they're an adult. Uh,
Exactly.
I've seen that firsthand. It's like they're still like boys. It's like, okay, they have a lot of growing up to do here, you know. So it sounds like you have a custom solution and integration. Like you basically have this discovery conversation and trying to bring that eye of the beholder's vision to life. And so, what does it look like in practice? So is this like a survey based? It sounds like you have the ability to do subjective data collection and objective data collection. So is it through an app? Is it web based? How does this look like in practice?
It's through an app and it's web-based, and we utilize a lot of the licenses that the school is already paying for. So we
Hmm.
utilize a lot of the licenses and the softwares that the school is already using, but just no one knows how to use it, and we basically unlock that potential for them. So what that allows us to do is ask certain questions and be a little bit more, allow the coaches and directors to be a little bit more intimate with the players from a maybe a HIPAA or a cognition or what's going on in their brain, their motivations. So where it's not that's not being stored on Recon Sports, that's being stored in the university's environment. So that allows us to do a lot of things. So whether it's a form being sent out to the players, whether it's connecting to an API, whether it's creating a workflow for them to export Excel data and drop it into a folder and it goes through the process, it's really almost a consulting basis at heart. And then once we set up those workflows, set up whatever they want to do, really the conversation is, hey, they can call me on a Tuesday and be like, hey, Danny, I know we got this one report. I want to kind of put an alert tracker next to it. Here's what I'm thinking. What do you think? How can we do that? Boom, okay, we could do this, this, and that. We'll put it on there. Less than 12 hours, it's up, and he's briefing it that next morning. So it's very rapid. We're in their hip pocket. I was a field artillery officer, and I took great pride in being the support of the infantry, the boots on the ground, the guys doing the dirty work. And when they needed cannons to rain down fire, they would call the field artillery. That's kind of my mentality with these coaches and the directors. They're in the building, they're the boots on the ground. They don't really know how to do advanced Excel or advanced Power BI or workflows. That's when they call me and I come in and I just make their life that much more easier and efficient and bring what they are actually looking for.
So how does this customized version versus one size fit all type of platforms in their space? How important is that for them?
I think it's extremely important. I'm going through with a client right now. The strength staff just completely changed. So if there was a template, so the new staff's coming in, we're onboarding them and kind of bringing their vision to life. But if they were to come in and be like, hey, here's a template that me, Danny Davis made. I think that you should follow this. Or hey, here's the template that the old guy had. I think that you should follow this. It's just not going to fly. He's going to resort to his own Excel files because that's what he's comfortable with. So being able to pivot and be able to really bring that idea to life that's personal to him or her, I think that's where the game changer comes in because everyone has templates, everyone has marketing. Recon, you won't see us everywhere, but we're kind of under the radar because we're a huge competitive advantage because we can do exactly that.
How does this data flow, like, does it contribute to their real-time insights by customizing it this way during season?
Yep. So it's basically broken down into daily reports, weekly reports, and semester reports. And regardless of the report, it's updated every 30 minutes. So we could have 76 data sources in one organization, and they're all refreshing every 30 minutes, being pumped into their database that we built and facilitate for them. And then with the hundreds of reports across the organization, those are updated in real time. So even an example of being the nutrition, adjusting goal weights for a player, right? You might have 5 different directors that want to see their body weights and the goal weights. Well, now we've built a system to where the nutritionist can just update that goal weight in one place, plus refresh, and now it's updated across the entire organization. The strength coach sees his new goal weight, player personnel sees his new goal weight, and it's not having to go into all of these different fragmented systems and update the goal weight, or even worse, just operate not knowing what a player's goal weight should be.
It, so it basically allows you to go into any environment and have them be able to automate their playbook, their approach. It's not
That's
trying to
right.
reinvent the wheel. It really allows for them to establish their vision further because I could see the value if I was running a program. I would like to make sure that this is uh, it's basically a chef versus a cook, right? That's what you're. A cook executes the game plan. A chef comes up with these recipes. And it's really cool to see this piece of that customization. And I think it's unique in that you're using already resources that the university has in place, but is not maximizing it. So I think, kudos to you on that one. I think it's a great application. You
Thank
mentioned
you.
AI was something that was commonly discussed, almost in every single work environment. View that every single day, every single news article. But like it really depends on clean and centralized data. So, what's your vision of AI right now in this decision making in the next 3 to 5 years? And do you feel like we're close to predictive analytics yet?
I think we're somewhat close, maybe on I think it's funny the 49ers right now, how their injury predictive analytics flagged that they're next to an electrical facility, and they think that is contributing to the injuries, and now the Seahawks won't even use the 49ers facility, even though that's where the Super Bowl is. So, there might be a sense of predictive analytics, but I think it's more so looking at like, hey, go look over here. It's giving you indicators where to look, because there's so much noise to filter through, whether it's just, your basic software packages now or just humans. There's so much noise to sift through, but that's about to change with AI here in a few years to where AI is going to be able to sift through that noise and give you a predictive different models on it, and being able to now give it to a couple AIs, give it to a couple grad programs. What do you think on this? Give me some analysis, give me some predictive um, analytics on it. But AI, in my opinion, I don't think it's there yet. I think the hype is real. I think the marketing is real, and that's what you kind of see a lot. I think it's going to change rapidly here in a few years. And what people don't understand is the AI is almost just as good as the human prompting it. Prompt engineering is a huge thing, and users right now should be learning how to prompt, learning how to communicate with essentially a robot on getting what you want it to do, because it's only as good as you. And it's really going to separate the people that know their craft, now being able to leverage AI to do a lot of the things that were just monotonous. If you go and try, if you have no idea what Python is, even though you see it on the commercial that you can go build a Python app with ChatGPT, there's no way you can go build an app with ChatGPT using Python
No.
if you don't know anything, have any background. It's just not possible. So
I
I think we're a few years away from it just being unreal, but not there yet.
Yeah, I've been playing around with it. I understand it. I mean, the way I learned AI was through my MBA program, looking at business analytics and looking at there's these levels, and there's several books on this on agents and on GPT technology and what it is, right? And to your point, the prompting engineering is huge. If you don't have to be, people I think get scared with, oh, I'm a prompt engineer. They're not a real engineer like mechanical or civil engineer. It's they're very good at understanding the nomenclature of how to phrase to a large learning model to be more specific, to answer it in a specific way, to frame that question along with what you other things that you want. The better you explain that, the better the outcome's going to be. But to your point, it's still not 100% accurate, and it might come up with a great framework. However, it's not going to do it for you.
Right.
So that's the other part here that a lot of people like say, we'll automate it, and it's not really robotic automation yet, So in certain tasks are robotic. You can do scraping, you can do basic things, but you know, right now in a sports organization, in the near future, it could do bare minimum.
Yeah.
I think it's going to change. I mean, some of the stuff they're saying about Claudebot is impressive. You can, to your point, you can grab any app and try to create your own app or create your own solution, but it's going to break within probably the first time that it gets exposed to use. You're going to have an understanding of app development still. You still can't get around Python or Java or C, whatever software you want to write it in. You still can't get around it. API integration is not seamless. It is getting better. I mean, at this last CES show, you saw some cool innovations, but it's nowhere near yet where the space needs to go. So shifting to this business side, you've mentioned before that sports tech does how does it range from a sales cycle standpoint? Do you feel like it's changed with the NIL at all? Are there any big friction points right now that you've experienced in the market space?
It's definitely a unique market space, and especially when you look at just budgets and how different every organization is almost different. But usually, your athletic budget is set by the summertime, and then if you're almost looking to get onto the next budget. If it's October, a lot of the times they can't just purchase something. It's like, okay, we'll get you on the budget for July, and then you got to wait till July, and then usually you got to send the product, and you're not going to get paid for a little bit. So it could be a nightmare. But especially now with the NIL and the House Act, budgets are getting even tighter because they got to go allocate funds to actual players now and not just softwares or technologies or wearables. Um, but at the same time, I think it's really driving the companies that do well are going to just the NIL and those constricted budgets are going to rise to the top because teams are in win now mode. So if you're a technology, if you're a software, if you're a service, and that you can validate and show and prove that you can help them win right now, like then they're going to buy you right now. They will find a way because it's a win now more than ever, and it's we don't have time to wait till next year's budget, especially with something like this. If it's October and you want to wait until July, well, you're going to miss out on almost a year's worth of data that you could be stockpiling right now. Um, so it's definitely tough, but with how competitive just college football is in general, there's just going to be a big separation of companies because ones that work, they're going to want it right now. The ones that don't, we'll talk to you in 8 months.
Yeah, I think to your point, adding that value in how better you communicate the data transparency, how does that impact your trust and retention? You know, I feel like that and then leveraging pre-existing technology that you might not be leveraging, um, it's a no-brainer because if you do the math, it sounds like you're saving them money. That at the end of the day. So are you seeing any tech as a bridge between athletic departments, parents, and athletes, or is it rather just a performance tool?
I think the parents are definitely need to be involved a little bit, and the schools that can leverage the technology to get the parents involved, it's just a better driving force for one, the development of the son or daughter, and two, having them stay. There was one case where there was a five-star running back and he wanted to transfer. And he was on the coaches, the parents were on the coaches to the point where they actually came in and almost threatened to transfer. And they were able to now pull up all of his misses and all of his poor performance over the past 12 months and show the parents, hey, this is how we're tracking your son. This is what we're seeing. If we can't trust him to make it on class on time consistently, how are we going to trust him on third down? And literally, the parents shifted their entire mindset to they were like, coaches, I apologize. I'm sorry for wasting your time. Son, like we're on your ass now. Like what is wrong with you? Like it shifts the perspective now, and having that integration, having that conversation piece. I don't think that the parents are ever going to have a login to certain apps or stuff like that, but if you can help it facilitate what's going on with their son or daughter inside your program and use it as a communication tool, it's just going to help your chances of one, better play and performance, and two, better retention over time.
So, if you have obviously you're still young compared to relevant to what I'm looking life through right now. Um, when you're engaging with some of these athletes and some of these coaches, do you feel like communication has changed in regards to, do you feel like the communication through I guess my point is you got four generations in this market space. They all play different roles. You got Gen Z, you got the millennials, you got boomers, you got Gen X forgetting my generation there. But then you got this up and coming generation. Do you feel like the communication at the end of the day is any easier or compared to what you're doing now from from a data standpoint?
I started doing this maybe like 7 years ago with high schools, and there was like old school high school coaches, and they just were not about analytics. And now, just 7 years later, like analytics is a big part in high school now. So I think you're starting to see that it change a little bit. Um, I don't know if I'm old enough to like really have a large sample size of like, hey, this is how it was back in my day, but from you kind of got you do need to know who you're talking to, and it comes down to the point of you're not trying to sell anything, you're not trying to market anything, whether you're a product, whether you're a coach, whether you're a player. At the end of the day, good people know good people, and if you could provide value, if you could follow through on your word, if you can come in and help us win, you could be any age out there, and that's a common language between every generation. Maybe it's just how you say it or how you do it, but good people recognize good people, and it's no matter what generation you're looking at, it's rare to find someone that when they say they're going to do something, they're going to do it. So just that alone, everyone knows how to communicate that way and see the value. Um, so that's kind of how I look at it.
I agree with you on that one. It's really interesting when you're seeing people engage and communicate and understand the value, but at the end of the day, is it really helping them, or is this just trying to? Is it one-sided? Is the person opportunistic, or is it a transactional relationship or a transformational relationship? And
Right.
um, I've really had a lot of those transformational where it literally um, was really cool to be able to interact with these teams years ago. Back then, and I'm not that old, but I mean, I started out like you're saying in the last 7 years. I've been in the industry since maybe early 2000s, late 1990s, uh, and I remember at that time infrared downloadable heart rate monitors as being cutting edge.
Hmm.
To flash forward to now where you have GPS units, you have sensors that seamlessly either collect the data or now are pushed up into the cloud automatically. And technology like that was always a wish you could have. And the friction point back then was it's too hard to get it. It wasn't in a raw data set, so certain organizations would not accept it. Or you get into these environments, and to your point is this is my secret sauce. I want my agency. This is my product. It's mine. These Excels are mine. These CSVs are mine. And I remember, uh, with Polar, something as simple as heart rate, we would have to I would have to export because at that time we didn't have the Team 2 system. We had to export CSV files and from that convert that into something that everyone could use just using simple Excel or and create a dashboard and create a z-score or a radar plot or show a significant deviation between certain players and rosters. Uh, um, High tech back then was VLOOKUP. Um, to flash forward to now to what you're saying is, I'm glad to hear from what you just shared that it's more also the mind, subjective inclusion. Because back then it was shut up, get on the line, we're doing gassers. Or we're going to run you 110-yard sprints 16 times because we've always done it that way.
Yeah.
So the sports science it definitely has kind of changed. So this has really been fascinating from hearing about your story about the military and where it's gotten to today with Recon Sports. It's tackling both like the tech but the human side of athletic performance. So before we wrap up here, what are some things next for you in 2026, and where can listeners learn more?
Yeah. So what's next for us is searching for those schools that um, realize that this is what it's going to take to win. And You're not going to see us at big conventions or have massive marketing budgets. We almost operate like our name, Recon. And you go to a Recon, you are under the radar if you're doing your job well and no one sees you, but you're having a lot of value. But you can find us at reconsports.com. I post some good stuff on my LinkedIn. One of the things that I'm going to try to do this year, one of my goals is to almost give back some of my knowledge just to any aspiring data scientists or data engineers or people that just want to do Excel or Power BI better. I think it's a skill that everyone should
Mm.
have and everyone needs to have coming up here to get ready for the AI future. And so if you want to follow any tutorials, have any questions on that, I didn't study data engineering or any of this stuff at school. I don't know how to code, but I've figured out how to do all of this, and I've basically systematized it to where anyone could do it. So if that sounds like you and you'd like to learn more, I'd love to help you out and help you on your data journey and ultimately your future.
That's awesome. That's a great extension of to offer. Um, I feel I agree with you. That's a skill set that more now than ever is important. I know it's people, why do I have to do it? AI will do it for me. Not so fast. It's not going to be that transition, and you don't want to let that be the reason why you get left behind. So,
Yes.
on that note, I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you and share your story. And I will add those your web link and your LinkedIn profile to the show notes. So thanks again.
Thanks for having me. Thanks, everyone.